Every age begins the same way. A few say too much, and the rest demand silence. The great outsiders never hid their wisdom out of vanity. They hid it to protect it from mutilation. Truth has weight. In unsteady hands, it crashes. Pythagoras knew that. So did Socrates, Diogenes, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Plato. They all stood before crowds who wanted revelation without discipline, fire without hate, knowledge without transformation. To speak plainly would have been cruelty. The Pythagoreans called it the law of harmony. Anything revealed before its time collapses the structure that should hold it. That's why initiates learned in stages, silence first, geometry later, philosophy last. Pythagoras saw that truth released into chaos becomes superstition. Show a mob that the numbers govern reality and they will try to sell the ratios. Show tyrants that proportion equals justice and they will counterfeit symmetry to justify control. The danger wasn't ignorance, it was misuse. So the community of the Pythagoreans guarded every diagram like a living flame. The uninitiated called them arrogant, but secrecy to the philosopher was compassion. Imagine handing a blade to a child. The cut is inevitable. Wisdom works the same way. It sharpens perception. Without moral balance, that sharpness turns outward and wounds. That's why the Pythagoreans kept novices silent for years. Speech shapes thought. Unmeasured speech corrupts it. Only when the voice carried proportion were students allowed to speak doctrine. It wasn't censorship, it was mercy. Plato learned the lesson well. He watched Athens execute his teacher for words misunderstood. When he founded the academy, he divided teaching in two: the exoteric for the crowd, the esoteric for the prepared. In public dialogues, he hid geometry inside myth, Atlantics for politics, the cave for perception. To the trained ear, each story contained ratio. To the untrained, they were harmless allegories. That double language kept philosophy alive long enough to reach you. Truth threatens comfort, and comfort funds civilization. Every social order depends on illusion that rulers are wise, that laws are just, that pleasure satisfies. Expose illusion, and the machine holds. That's why the outsiders of every era were exiled, executed, or erased. The chain of secrecy wasn't eliticism, it was survival. Diogenes carried his lamp at noon, not to taunt the blind, but to show the few who could still see. Epictetus taught in riddles so that freedom looked harmless to Rome. Marcus Aurelius hid philosophy in private notebooks so emperors could not censor him. All of them disguised light as language ordinary minds could ignore. History records what happens when secrecy fails. A student, Hipparchus, betrayed the community, spreading their formulas for personal gain. The result was chaos. Merchants used sacred numbers for profit. Politicians used them for manipulation. Mystics warped them into cults. The Pythagorean community scattered. Some were killed, others vanished into Egypt and Magna Graecia. The message survived, but dimmed. Plato's dialogues, Aristotle's metaphysics, even early Christianity carried its echoes. From that fall, a new rule arose: guard fire, not ashes; preserve essence, not ritual. The ancients treated words as instruments. Each syllable, tuned or untuned, could build or break the soul. That's why Pythagoras demanded silence, to teach listening before creation. Today, language is cheap, and meaning dies of overuse. The internet speaks faster than thought, but the old rule still applies. Frequency equals impact. Speech without ratio still destroys. To hide knowledge now means filtering, not holding, refusing to dilute what requires preparation. To teach the unready is betrayal. To teach no one is waste. Enlightened mind stands between those dangers. That's why the Pythagorean oath ended with a paradox. I will reveal only to those who already know. Meaning the worthy recognize truth on sight. They don't need proof, only reminder. That law still separates the Catharsian from the crowd. Recognition, not recruitment. If you've ever guarded an idea because you feared its misuse, if you've shared truth only through metaphor, if you've sensed that silence transmits more than speech, you walk in Pythagorean's footsteps. You are a Pythagorean. You're a Catharsian leader. Join the Catharsians today on Patreon for those who protect truth through precision. The Pythagorean path. Practice silence as compassion, measure before revealing. Diogenes' barrel, mock illusion to disguise wisdom in laughter. The Aurelius Council, architects of hidden order, teachers who build without audience. The worthy never hoard, they filter. Join the Catharsians today on Patreon and reclaim your power as a leader. Every empire tried to erase the fire, none succeeded. The outsiders of the past built truth like an underground city, tunnels of meaning beneath the monuments of illusion. Every time the surface burned, the fire moved deeper. What the crowd called mystery was simply survival in code. When the Pythagorean school in Croton fell, its survivors scattered. Some fled east to Egypt and Persia, carrying geometry disguised as ritual. Others crossed into Athens and whispered their knowledge into young minds. Plato was among those minds. He turned number into idea, ratio into metaphysics. His academy wasn't new, it was a continuation of the hidden order. He concealed the Pythagorean doctrine of harmony behind dialogue. He replaced the oath of silence with the art of questioning. The teacher became midwife, pulling truth from within rather than handing it down. That transformation saved philosophy from extinction. The Romans inherited Greece's temples, but not its soul. They loved structure more than insight, order more than truth. So the flame hid itself again, this time in Stoicism. Epictetus, born a slave, learned freedom from within. He stripped philosophy of myth until only discipline remained. Marcus Aurelius kept it alive in secret diaries never meant for readers. Their restraint wasn't fear, it was camouflage. In a world that whispered conquest, they hid divinity inside self control. That's how the fire crossed from temples to hearts. When philosophy meant empire, exile became doctrine. The church adopted the language of reason but buried its independence. The outsiders adapted. They encoded geometry into cathedrals, harmony into hymns, astronomy into stained glass. Monks copied Plato and Pythagoras under the guise of theology. In the Middle Ages, the hidden lineage changed costume again. Philosophers became alchemists. Their experiments weren't about gold, they were about transformation of matter, mirroring transformation of soul. Transmutation meant harmony restored. Stone meant perfected proportion. Centuries later, science stripped off the symbols, forgetting the discipline behind them. No empire can kill a principle. You can outlaw a name, but not proportion. You can silence a voice, but not harmony. That's why the lineage survived every censorship, because it had already transcended form. Wherever there was ratio, the fire lived. Wherever someone sought order in chaos, the Pythagorean bloodline flowed. Outsiders understood that hiding truth inside art, architecture, or mathematics didn't dilute it, it immortalized it. Every rediscovery was resurrection. Secrecy once meant stone chambers and veiled symbols. Today, the world has no walls. Every truth, every error, every fragment of fire spills across saints. The ancient Pythagorean order required 5 years of silence before a single lesson. Now the unready scroll through entire philosophies before breakfast. Nothing is hidden, and almost nothing is understood. That is the paradox of our age. Unlimited exposure, zero initiation. The Catharsian must therefore become a new kind of guardian, one who protects the fire through discernment, not concealment. When everything is public, secrecy changes nature. You cannot build temples against noise. You must build filters inside perception. Pythagoras used doors. You must use focus. He asked silence of speech. You must ask silence of attention. Guarding the fire now means resisting diffusion, refusing to feed the algorithm that turns wisdom into decoration. It means releasing truth with measure, not volume. A single well placed word can pierce more veils than 1,000 pasts screamed into the void. The worthy still recognize ratio, they find it even in fragments. The new Pythagoreans know, Catharsians know. In the modern age, worthiness no longer means membership, it means readiness. A worthy listener is anyone willing to slow down enough to hear. A worthy teacher is anyone who refuses to flatter ignorance. The Pythagorean order guarded the door with silence, you guard it with integrity. Both are the same gate. If you've learned to share less and mean more, if you feel allergic to performance, if your words now carry weight, even when few hear them, you have entered the new order. You are a Pythagorean. You're a Catharsian leader. Join the Catharsians today on Patreon. You are the guardian of fire without walls. For those keeping proportion in an age of excess, the Pythagorean path. Practice rhythm. Speak only when ratio demands. Diogenes' barrel, live invisibly, let absence purify influence. The Aurelius Council, the modern order of firekeepers, visible work, invisible ego. The worthy will find you not through search, but through silence. Join the Catharsians today on Patreon and reclaim your suppressed power as a Catharsian leader.